In this video, we're going to talk about reading the enemy jungler using minimal information, logic, deductive reasoning, and putting yourself in the enemy's shoes. When you start the game off, the first thing you want to look at is the matchups, particularly the jungle matchup, and what kind of jungler you're facing. Now, there are two kinds of junglers, and I think the Korean name have categorized these effectively, which are carnivore junglers and herbivore junglers. So, herbivore junglers are the ones that have a more difficult time defending themselves early, are more farm oriented, need level 6, and just can't play that aggressively, while carnivore junglers would be the more physical damage oriented champions that are a little bit squishier, deal more damage. For instance, Rek'Sai, Lee Sin, Shaco, Nocturne. These are carnivore junglers, right? They can fight, they can look for fights and come out ahead, while a herbivore jungler would be like an Amumu, a Sejuani, I suppose, and she's so strong right now, or the Nautilus. Those would be the herbivore junglers, and you can kind of see why these names have been given to them. Now, on top of looking at these matchups, you're going to want to look at how these champions jungle. So this just comes with your knowledge of the game and having played a lot of games and having seen these champions jungle. So for instance, if you're up against a Rengar, you would know that it's kind of difficult for Rengar to go for a full clear, and more often than not, he'll clear 3 camps, recall, and then go to the other side of the jungle with a completed jungle item, which can create a nice opportunity for you to either gank him in his first half of the map or to try to steal something from him while he's still either at base or in his other side of the map, the one that we started on. So same thing goes for, like you would know that the Nautilus can get a little bit low. Same thing goes with the Amumu. These champions can't go for a full clear and stay full HP, right? This is not, you're not playing against Rek'Sais, you're not playing against Udyrs. So this all comes with general knowledge of the game. So you're really going to need to know these things and know how other junglers jungle. So you're going to have quite a bit of games before you can really use the information I'm going to help you out with. After looking at the matchup and having a general idea as to what the opposing champion is going to do, if they want to farm, gank early, things like that. Look at the summoner spells. Are they running teleport? Is that Hecarim with a teleport? More than likely, he's not going to invade. Is that a Shaco with ignite? You should be on the lookout if you get invaded. Then you're going to want to look at the top lane. These are the ones that really affect your lane quite a bit more than anyone else, because top laners are the ones that have the ability to steal buffs from you. They can go into your enemy jungle, into your jungle, and start at your camps, take your buff level 1, and that could be really annoying. That's really an effective way of shutting down a jungler by stealing one of his camps. So you have to be on the lookout for that, and you have to let your team know that you could suspect that, and that you need trinket wards to be dropped at specific times, particularly before the creep spawn. And the best time to do this, if you think that you're going to be invaded, drop your trinkets at entrances as closest to the enemy side as possible at around 1 minute 30. Now you can drop a trinket ward at 1 minute 30 in the top river around the island brush, and make it all the way down to the double golems or Krugs and start at Krugs and not miss a beat. But you got to be quick about it, because if you take a little bit of time and go for a leisurely stroll, you're going to miss out on jungling at 155. Now, once you look at those matchups, the next thing you have to do is predict where the enemy is going to start. Now, if you're against the Fiddlesticks, you probably have a good idea that he's going to start at the blue side, but against junglers like Rek'Sai, Lee Sin, Jarvan, it's not that easy to know where these champions are going to start. So, how do you predict where they started? Well, as soon as everybody goes into the lane, you need to look at every single member of the lane, and first of all, note the time that they're coming into lane. So if they're not there when the creeps are hitting, and they're not buying a fourth potion, something's up. Look at their mana, look at their HP. Is their mana full? If their mana is full, particularly top lane, and his health is full, he probably didn't leash. Nothing to worry about then. So you could think to yourself, okay, he didn't start on the top side of the map. Look at the bottom side, and the bottom lane made it to lane really early, but the support Janna has a little bit less than full mana. Okay, so you know she used a shield on the jungler, and now you know where the jungler started. So in your head, start mapping out the route. You're thinking, okay, he started as a Gromp or Krug, so it's the bottom side. He's a mana dependent jungler. He'll probably do blue, then wolves, and then if he gets too low, but it is a Nautilus who has a good shield, especially with blue buff, so he can probably go for the other side of the map. And now in your head, you're mapping out his route, and you can kind of see how he's going to want to play the map out. Okay, so he'll finish in the top side, he'll do red after this, and then will he get low enough? Depends if he chooses to do the Wraith camp, right? Because he could do, although he can do wolves, then red and gank after red, because his smite would be back up. But if he does Wraith, he probably won't have the HP to gank. So if you want to look out for his gank, instead of dropping wards at entrances, you could drop a ward at his Wraith camp, see if he does that one, and if he does, then you know, and he does do that camp without the red buff, then you know that if he tries to gank without the red, it's a possibility, but if he ganks with red, he more than likely will not have the HP to do so. So that's just a little bit of mapping out the enemy. And let's say a more difficult scenario happens, that you look at the guy in lane and it's like, every laner used mana. Okay, what happened? Or no laner used mana. Did he get a leash? What happened? Then you think to yourself, okay, you don't know where the enemy started. How are you going to figure him out? Well, you need to obviously make your way to a camp to know where he is. But you also need the timers of the jungle to know what his next move is going to be. Because otherwise, it's kind of useless. Like, you need to know what his next move will be besides his first clear. So he did a good job of dodging you, spotting him for his first clear. But you need to make sure that you know what his second clear is going to be after he recalls. So you're going to have to find the jungler or wait for him to show up. And let's say he shows up at around 5 minutes in the map, and he has red buff on him, but he's let's say level 4, almost level 5 at that point, and he only has red. So you think to yourself, okay, blue buff lasts 2 minutes, he has red right now, and you click on him and you see that the red's almost about to run out. So then you can think to yourself, okay, more than likely, what he did was he started on the blue side, did blue early, it wore off already, that's why he doesn't have it. And before his first back, he did red buff, which is why the red buff is almost going to decay as well. Then he based, and now I'm seeing him right now because he finished the red buff at around 3 minutes and like 3:30, I'd say. That's around the time that he finished the red buff. So okay, 2 minutes from 3:30, 5:30. You saw him at 5 minutes. That red buff's got 30 seconds on it. Now you know the route that he started at, and since he started on the blue side, you can kind of estimate that the blue buff spawns at around 7:30, the new time for the second blue buff spawn. So you can invade on that, and you can assume that the red spawn as well is going to be around 3 minutes and 30 seconds, because blue buff lasts 2 minutes. As soon as it expires, count 3 minutes from that, so if it expires at 5:30, add 3 to that, 3 minutes to the expiry time, that's when his buff is going to spawn. So him showing is a huge telltale, which is why it's so crucial that as a jungler you make sure that you stay hidden and that you don't give away your positioning, because if somebody sees you, they can really map out what you've been doing and what you will do. And this is just the information that you should be doing to map him out and know what his next move is, because it's not just dependent on the buffs. It's going to be a matter of, he started on the blue side, so he obviously did Gromp and Wolves again. So if I want to invade him right now, I can go to his Gromp and Wolves, because the spawn time is 1 minute and 40. It most likely will be back up right now because he finished on the bottom side of the map, or the red side of his jungle. So you have a window to get in there and try to do some counter jungler or look for an aggressive play. And remember that camp spawn time is 1 minute and 40 seconds. And here's another one that hasn't really been used just yet, but scuttle crabs last 75 seconds, which is a minute and 15 seconds, and have a spawn time of 3 minutes. The useful thing about scuttle crab is that at the top of it has a little thing, that indication that kind of tells you how long it's been alive for. So you look at these things and you think, okay, the jungler was here roughly about 30 seconds ago. He cleared this thing about 30 seconds ago. Where could he be after 30 seconds? He'd probably be either in your side of the jungle invading, or his side of the jungle, or recalled. If his side of the jungle is gone, he more than likely recalled. So you can use that, or you go to invade him and then you see, oh, his camps aren't here. So he clearly was here about a minute 40 ago. So he's either in this side of the map trying to gank something through lane or trying to be sneaky about it, or he's probably in the other side of the map. Or you can wait for him there because you know what time he's going to be back at. This information can be very difficult to keep track of because it's all about windows of opportunity that you have to be really active and proactive to try to get. You should try to get the crab at any time, and you should try to counter jungle, and it's always safe. These two things are going to be super useful because they will delay your jungle, and the less camps that he has, the more predictable his route becomes. So you want to keep tabs on him. You want to make him go where you want him to go because that opens up opportunities for you to gank aggressively, to counter gank more effectively, to just play the map out in the way that you want to play while he cannot. Now, on top of that, if you're having a difficult time kind of reading him and you're thinking, man, I can't really process all this information right now. It's kind of difficult. I don't know where he's ganking. I haven't seen him at all. How do I really keep track of him? Okay, well, this is where the initial part of the analysis, the pregame analysis, is going to come into play, where you look at the team compositions and you try to think where the enemy's ganks are. Where is he going to gank? So you look at your team comp, and let's say you have a Thresh Corki bottom lane versus Soraka Graves, and the enemy has like a Jarvan jungle. Ganking for the Soraka lane with absolutely no setup is probably very unlikely. That's not an easy lane to gank. It won't have a high success rate unless the Thresh Graves are completely overextended and super low HP, which can happen, of course, but it's not likely. So, Thresh Corki being a very difficult lane to gank, you can kind of throw that one out the window and say, this lane's going to be safe, it won't be targeted. Look at the top lane, and now you have Khai versus Lissandra, and the enemy has a Maokai, you have a Lissandra, and they have a Jarvan jungle. This is a really good place for for Jarvan to gank, right? Maokai, great setup against Lissandra. One twisted advance, EQ combo from Jarvan. That Lissandra is pretty dead just with that damage. So that's a matchup that you have to protect. So you can think, okay, this is a matchup that can be ganked as quickly as Maokai hits level 2. I gotta look out for this one. And then mid lane, you have like Ari versus Cassiopeia, an easy lane to gank for Jarvan to gank for the Cassiopeia because one charm, again, Cassiopeia is dead. So you really have to look out for this, and you think to yourself, okay, the jungler is more likely going to be focusing on the solo lanes this time around, which means that since he starts with the Soraka, he can probably get a good leash with a heal and finish with red buff with a lot of HP and gank the solo lanes with a red buff, with a blue buff, really be effective in the early game. So you think that, and then you can map your own route and say, do you want to gank the other lane and create your own thing, or do you want to try to counter gank and be reading him and trying to predict him? And if you can read and counter gank the enemy's strong point, then you've practically won the game by that point. And then the next thing is going to be how to read them looking at the jungle items that they have. So you see the guy, and you see that he has a pink ward and a green, right? You drop the ward at Wraith Camp, Razorbeaks, and And you see that he has these wards, and then he leaves and he enters your side of the map, and then he comes back to do the raid camp, and he has no wards left. This should be very obvious, but it's not so much. Now you think to yourself, okay, so as soon as he entered the fog of war, in this entire area, there is a pink ward and there's a green ward. And based on how quickly he walked back to a ward and how quickly he was spotted again, you should be able to know where the wards are placed. So if you see him at raid camp and then 10 seconds later he's back at raid with no wards, you can kind of assume that there's only a couple places that he can ward. So you make it your duty, okay, he's back here, I'm just gonna make my way up into these areas and clear the pink wards, clear the green wards, and now I've countered his vision game, and I can play more aggressively on this side of the map because he put these wards there to try to defend this part of the map. I just took them out, so he's going to have to invest a lot more money, which he probably won't be willing to do so, to protect the side of the map. And then you can weave your way into his side now because you didn't spend anything to clear those wards. In fact, they gave you money. And then you look at what other items he has. Let's say you know he did a full route and he only has like he has the Ranger's Trailblazer and no items. You think to yourself, okay, he definitely warded something. Like things are warded right now. So you got to be a little bit more cautious invading. You got to be more cautious in your own jungle. So you have to start using your smite on the raid camp, trying to spot where the enemy jungle wards are, because you know he had more money, but you haven't seen ward placements yet. He's not going to save up money, right? He's going to want to use that as early as possible. So using that information will tell you what his plan is, and you can act it out accordingly. And it can be, this goes into so many different levels of play, like lanes as well. You see laners go Sork shoes early. Okay, they want to go for kill pressure, right? They're going for certain other items. Okay, he's going for a Zhonya's but he's in an AP lane, wants to split push against a Zed, things like that. So there's a lot of different things that can tell you how somebody wants to play their game out, and you need to use this to know how the game is flowing, so you can read your opponent and have better counterplay. And another key thing for you to do is reading the map. Now, every time I play, I always look at the mini map, probably more than the actual map itself. I mean, you can practically AWalk and use abilities blindly when you're jungling, to be completely honest, because it's so easy. If you're killing NPCs, it's not a big deal. Look at the mini map, and every action you do, you need to look at how your enemies are reacting to it. What I mean by that is, let's say you're going for your first buff and your Rengar, so you can be a little bit chunked on your first red buff. I mean, so you did blue, and then you're all the way at red buff now. As soon as you start the buff, you keep an eye on the minimap, and you notice, the enemy mid laner is pushing really hard right now, and the support seems to be, inching his way towards my side of the jungle. That can be a really good indication of, shit, they want to invade me right now. They want to try to kill me at my buff because they know I'm vulnerable at this point. They definitely know. It doesn't take a scientist to know that Rengar can be vulnerable doing two buffs in one clear, especially his first one. So probably back away a little bit, see how they react. Okay, I stopped doing the buff, or I pulled it to another direction, and they went away. Okay, so I can assume that either the enemy jungler is in here and they let him do his own thing, or that it's warded. So the correct response should be, I'm not going to go for a gank right now because they know my HP. They will know the route that I will be taking, and they will also have a really good chance of counter ganking me because they can expect it. So just looking at the map can tell you these things. Or you're going for a second buff invade, and you see that as soon as you go for the invade, the top laner is missing. maybe he wants to teleport into you. You got to be more cautious. So looking at the mini map is a good indication of knowing when you're spotted in a ward and when it's too dangerous to do something. I'm sure there's a lot on this topic that I haven't covered, but it's one that you can experiment for yourself and really test the waters as to how much can you read into the enemy and how much is too much, because a lot of times you can be thinking into your head and you don't want to put yourself in the situation of what's the perfect play that he can do. Oh, he's going to do the perfect play every time. Like, that's not going to get you much. Just use the information that he gives you and read the map, because trying to imagine that, oh, Shaco's going to invade me every single time, like, that's not necessarily true. Or, oh, Lee Sin wants to kill me. He knows I'm here because the enemy moved. I saw them move on the minimap. Not necessarily all the time. You can smite the wolf camp if you're really anxious about it, or just don't do the second red buff so quickly. You can base, give it up, it's fine. So just make sure that you think about it before you commit to any action. Just remember that the slightest bit of information that the enemy gives you, you can use to read his entire game plan. And same goes for what you do to him. So if you give any information out, you show and you fail a gank, now he knows where you are, the route that you started, the route that you will do, the route that you'll like, a new route that you'll take, the wars that you'll probably take again, what side you're gonna be using your smite on. Like, it is a huge deal. So try to keep this into consideration when you're jungling and use it, because a lot of times people don't use this for themselves. But if you can have that edge on the enemy, then you can get really big leads, especially finding one kill here and there, or getting a buff while they're not really paying attention, while they're busy doing something else because you predicted that they were going somewhere else. And you can get pretty substantial leads by just out jungling, because you got to remember, top lane's counterpart, they got to beat the other top laner. Mid lane's counterpart, they got to beat the other mid laner. Bot lane's counterpart, the support and the AD carry. Your jungle counterpart is the other jungler. It's not the entire team. It's the other jungler while affecting the enemy's team. So screwing over the jungler from the jungler's perspective would be the equivalent of winning lane. So keep that in mind, and let me know what you thought of this video. It's been a while since I made one, so I guess I kind of got to get back into the groove of things. But if you have any future ideas, let me know, and I think I'm going to try to make a champion guide, or, by now it's probably the World of Tanks patch, so we got to figure that one out.